Hello, so this is me just talking through the help sheet for Unit 10, Assignment 1. So it's about sociological theories of healthcare. So a good place to start would be, what is sociology? So sociology is the study of society, and then after that you can define and explain the main social institutions and say what their purpose is and what they are. So they are the family, the education system, health and social care services. So that's your intro. And then after that, there are some sociological concepts which it would be useful to discuss. So what the best thing to do with those would be to define them, and then you could link them to health, because obviously that's something that is important for the assignment. So gender, what is gender? How does it link to health? So for example, gender could affect mental health. So for example, men are more likely to suffer from mental health problems, more likely to commit suicide, things like that. And obviously that is one way in which gender can affect your health. Then we've got the models of health. Essentially there are three, but the goal of this assignment is to have a think about how one, the most important one, called the biomedical model, impacts upon healthcare within the local area, within Wigan, and then comparing it to another model. So for example, a social model or the complementary model of healthcare. I would probably do the social model because there's probably more on it and there's more interesting things to say. What is the biomedical model? So the biomedical model is the idea that health is the absence of disease. And if you are unhealthy, it means that you have certain symptoms or certain things happening in your body that therefore makes you ill. Obviously, you could criticize this model and link it to how it is used in the healthcare sector. So obviously, if you go to the doctor, the main way in which they treat you is maybe to give you pills, to give you a diagnostic test, or to give you surgery or something else like that, which is designed to change your biology and therefore make you better, I guess, in quotation marks. Then talk about another model. You need to talk about both of them, the social and the complementary, but only compare the biomedical model with one. So I would do the social model, the idea that there are problems and issues in society which might then cause ill health or cause certain people or certain groups of people to be more likely to be ill. And also, how is that useful and how is that used in healthcare settings? So for example, the social model is the idea that poorer people are more likely to be ill than richer people, or certain ethnic groups are more likely to face certain problems which might affect their health, or women or men. What could we do about those things? Well, one thing we could do is try and reach out to those groups who might be disadvantaged, or who might be more likely to be obese, or who might be more likely to get diabetes and things like that, and therefore give them certain interventions and therefore improve their health. So it's not necessarily about a biomedical thing or changing their biology or whatever. It's more about looking at the problems in society and using that to influence then how we do things. Just a mention of one of the things that you can mention in the social model of health is the inverse care law, the idea that disadvantaged people are most likely to be excluded from healthcare, most likely to not be able to access healthcare for a variety of reasons. Then the next bit is concepts of health, ill health, disability. So, what are those things? What is health? What is ill health? What is disability? Are they what's called a social construct? So the idea that, do we ourselves in society define what health is or define what illness is? And could we define it a different way in order to change our opinion of it? There are also biological constructs. So from the biomedical perspective, an illness as having a certain disease or a condition which makes your body or your biology different to other people. There are also definitions of health. So there's a definition from the World Health Organization, which is more about having a sense of well-being and having a higher bar for health. Do you contribute to your community? Are you happy? Do you have a sense of well-being? And that's more of a positive view of health, whereas the negative view is really the biomedical view, the view that we do not have an illness. That's a negative view of health. There's also the holistic view of health, which is about looking at the whole person and looking at their whole environment and deciding how that makes up our health. So, even if we do not have a biological illness, we might have certain things in our environment which might make us more likely to need to have days off sick and have more problems with our mental health and things like that. And it's not just the biomedical model, it's important. How do they influence those concepts of health, ill health, and disability influence healthcare in the local area? So, for example, one of the things that healthcare professionals do is they look at the person and what sort of environment they come from, and that might impact upon what treatment they give to that person. And also, I read something that the idea that most people who go to the doctors don't actually have a biological illness. So it's something else that needs to be looked at. There's something in Wigan called the Wigan Deal, which essentially is about reducing people's reliance on healthcare providers like GPs and things like that, and improving people's lifestyles so they actually live better. So that's not a biomedical thing. It's more about how we see health and having a more positive view of health, if you like. Then the sociological perspective. So the idea is you'll explain them, what are their main beliefs, and then say how they help us to understand society and how they help us to understand health and social care. So there's 5 theories: functionalism, Marxism, feminism, postmodernism, and social action theory. And you have 2 types of theory: a conflict theory and a consensus theory. Functionalism is a consensus theory, meaning they believe that we have agreement on society's norms and values, whereas Marxism and feminism are conflict theories. There's conflict either between men and women or the social classes in relation to Marxism. There's also structural theories that believe that we and our lives are impacted upon by outside forces, and action theories, who essentially believe that we have free will to be able to create society as we wish. So I've just given some examples here of ways in which the sociological theories might help us to understand healthcare. So functionalism, Parsons talks about the sick role, so it helps us to understand how people are defined as sick and how they're fulfilling this role, in quotation marks, that then allows them to opt out of their normal responsibilities and then try and get better. Social action theory is about illness and how we define it. So, for example, illness is a social construction. We create illness, and some things are classified as illnesses where some things aren't, and they're interested in understanding that. If you remember from the mental health unit, we talked about Goffman and total institutions. So he says that institutions like mental hospitals, they take away people's identity. So you might take away your clothes, you might have a uniform, they might take away your possessions, and that takes away your individuality, which then makes it more difficult for you to live outside of one of those institutions. Social action theorists also talk about labeling. So, for example, being given a label of a certain type of illness might have a negative impact upon you and could even turn into your master status, which is the idea that can be the main way then that people see you in society. So, for example, if you've got AIDS or if you've got a mental illness, people may see you in that way and forget about the other aspects of your personality. Marxism talks about capitalism and the idea that medicine is essentially a business. So medicine is about making money for the bourgeoisie or the middle class, and the doctors, they're just members of the proletariat, just workers who are working and wage slaves for the system. We talked about in class the idea that pharmaceutical companies are making lots and lots of money and lots of profit from people's illness. Is that right? Feminism talks about the fact that the medical profession is patriarchal or male dominated. So, for example, the staff makeup of the NHS is women often are placed into the less roles with less status, and men are given the more high status roles. Also, female issues are often medicalized. So, for example, childbirth. Postmodernism is all about the idea that society is so different nowadays and everybody's so different that everybody might have their own health and social care needs. They also talk about the idea of pick and mix. You can pick and mix your treatment. So you can choose your teeth, or you can choose particular procedures or particular types of therapy that you want to be able to get healthier, in quotation marks. Postmodernists also talk about the fact that we might now mistrust the medical profession. We don't trust their expertise anymore. So, in relation to COVID, we don't necessarily trust doctors or trust scientists anymore. They also talk about disembedding of treatment. So disembedding means moving something from its original context into a new one. So, for example, doctor's appointments can be online. They can be on video consultation. You've got apps to book appointments and things like that. And that's changing the way we experience healthcare. Another couple of concepts related to the sociological theories is medicalization. So Illich talked about the idea that we medicalize issues and we give power to doctors to be able to take control of that area of life. So, for example, it could be childbirth or death and things like that. For Illich is a negative thing, because in the past that wasn't medicalized. It was treated as a normal aspect of life. And now that it is, it can actually be dangerous for people, or originally it was, according to Illich. The clinical iceberg is the idea that there are large amounts of illnesses that are not reported. So the statistics on healthcare are just the tip of the iceberg. So we might think that 1 in 4 people have a mental health problem. That's just the tip of the iceberg. In fact, it might be 2 in 4 or 3 in 4, but a lot of people are not coming forward or are not being diagnosed. And sociology helps us to understand that and to try and get at the other statistics that are there. Just a quick note. This is related to the D criteria. Evaluate the role of sociological perspectives in the understanding of society and models and concepts of health in relation to service provision in a local health and social care setting. So those examples that I've just given are ways in which sociology helps us to understand healthcare in society in general, but obviously in relation to Wigan and Greater Manchester. Just an idea for a conclusion. What you could say and you could discuss is the idea that health, illness, disability, things like that, those ideas are constantly changing. We might need to move beyond this biomedical view of health. You could link that to postmodern theory, which basically says, everybody's ideas are different on these things. What used to be a relatively normal thing. So, for example, 30 years ago, if someone was really into gambling and they gambled lots and lots and lots, people wouldn't see that as a medical problem. It wasn't seen as an addiction, if you like, but now it is. So things like that constantly change. And obviously nowadays we have a really diverse society with lots of different types of people in it, and healthcare has got to take account of that and think about all of those different groups. So, the different ethnic groups and trans people and people from different religions and people with disabilities and things like that. Okay, thanks very much.